the first time.
All set.
All right, thanks, Ryan. All right, here we are. Welcome to the Buildings, Facilities, and Capital Expenditure Committee of March 4th, 2021. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States
States of America,
to the
to the
Republic,
republic
for
which it stands,
nation,
one nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
with
liberty,
justice,
and justice for all.
Thank you. And Justin, I'm going to start with you. I totally apologize. Well, I apologize to everyone, but I apologize to you even more. I had the meeting minutes and I had them forwarded along. I was going to forward them along, totally blanked on it. So that when I went for the agenda, I realized that I didn't forward the meeting minutes, so I didn't put them on the agenda. So I was planning on doing meeting minutes today. So I apologize to everyone else. We'll definitely do it next time. I apologize.
Not a problem. We've probably got a fair bit of reviewing to do.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking I'd send them along ahead of time, and I don't know what's going on. I think I'm blaming it on COVID. My organization skills have dwindled. So if you see on the agenda, I kept it very broad. 2020 articles and 2021 capital article requests. So I was over the past couple of days, I was just going through all the past emails of all the capital article requests we have, and you received that one yesterday. That was today. Today or yesterday from the school committee. So I was doing the math. So the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District has requests in to this committee totaling $323,512. The fire has in request to this committee of $120,000. Police has in to this committee $40,275. DPW has a request in of $127,800. And water and sewer has a request in of $20,695,600 million. Obviously, two of those would be the two large ticket items. There's the water sewer force main, the sewer force main, and the DPW building. 114 at the water sewer at 14.6 million, the DPW they're estimating at 6 million. Those two items would obviously not be financed within the levy. Those would require some type of debt exclusion. However, so then I broke it out a little further. So items that would be the funding source would be free cash. They equal $483,787. Items that would qualify for free cash funding through free cash in water and sewer retained earnings total $886,800. Again, the forced sewer main would be funded through financing and would be bonded and then financed through sewer rates. And then the DPW building, like I said before, 6 million would be a debt exclusion. So Lincoln, I forget when does the warrant close for Whitman?
It closes tomorrow.
Tomorrow. So hopefully, so I'll follow up after tomorrow with Lincoln to confirm that we have the same requests that were forwarded over to the Board of Selectmen, and we'll go from there. I know early on the season, I sent out invitations to the department heads. I haven't responded back to them. It kind of seemed that January we were really filled up with the discussions regarding this forced sewer main. We've still been kind of filled up with that as well. But I figured, since the warrant was opening and closing fairly soon, I'd wait till that was closed to make sure that we have all the capital article requests. And then when we have department heads in, we don't have to ask for them to come in again. We can deal with everything in one meeting. So just like to go, so I kind of skipped ahead, usually we kind of start the meeting with subcommittee reports from the FinCom and from the town administrator. Well, actually, like I'll hold it over, bring it over to you if you have any updates in regards to town administrator, in regards to anything that affects this committee.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know, Don, I don't believe we've met yet, but looking forward to working with you and everyone else on the committee. I know I've met and spoken with everybody else here. I think you summarized it pretty well, Dave. As we said, the warrant closes tomorrow. So we don't really have a comprehensive list at this moment yet compiled of all the articles, but there's still maybe something that comes in tomorrow, and then we can have that further conversation. I do think, just FYI on the sewer force main, so it looks as though it's likely that there'll be a Board of Selectmen meeting, possibly a joint meeting if there's a quorum of DPW commissioners who want to be there on March 23rd for when the board will hear the different options. And it seems like the DPW superintendent and the commissioners will be ready at that point with what the commissioner's recommendation is for which of the options, and talk a little bit more about financing structure for that. So just FYI on the schedule for that. So I think one other thing I'll mention is that certainly in concert with the capital plan in general, certainly getting a clear understanding of exactly where we're at with CARES Act monies. And I certainly think we'll have to see exactly the final items that come through as far as warrant article requests, but I'm hopeful that we may be able to look at some of those with the COVID nexus and possibly cover them with outstanding CARES Act monies from Plymouth County. But that remains to be seen, depending on exactly what they are and what their need is, what the need for it actually is at this moment, and what the costs are, and whether or not they have a nexus to COVID, and whether or not it fits in the remaining COVID funds. So stay tuned on that, I think. So.
Okay, interesting. All right. And then in regards to the Finance Committee sub-report, sorry, any questions on that for Lincoln?
No.
Okay, so seeing none. So with the Finance Committee sub-report, Lincoln, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase what you had mentioned at the committee, and is that I think I've mentioned it to this committee before. Operating budget requests in the Article 2 exceed our levy limit, so we're over budget in terms of requests. Lincoln is going to go ahead with and meet with department heads and to try and to come up with a balanced budget in time for, I forget the date. Was it April 13th?
April 13th will be the joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen.
So by April 13. Concerns brought up by members of the Finance Committee, and I'm going to paraphrase. I'm going to summarize it a different way. I think me personally, I think what they were saying, and I guess I shouldn't. I'm not going to put it. What I didn't mention, and what I was the concern. Hold on. Let me just mention what members of the committee stated. The members of the committee stated that they were concerned that that there was going to be negotiations done outside the realm of Finance Committee, and that there would be no input. There would be no ability for the Finance Committee to make recommendations. Lincoln town administrator said, be willing to bring forth, if the committee as a whole or individual members have concerns in regards to the budget, they'd be willing to look at those. And if necessary, bring those to the department heads as part of his negotiations. What I did not, what I didn't mention, because I think what they were kind of stating is that in the past, what had happened a few years was that the town administrator had done the same thing without any input from finance committee, and then boom, and then it was time for town meeting. And I think that was the concern that was that other members kind of bringing forth. And Lincoln, assured us that that was not his intent. Excuse me. So that's it. So short story is, budget request is still over our levy limits, and which may affect, which could, I'll say it's a worst case scenario, which could potentially affect free cash for this year. I'll just say it that way. So that's it. Fred, so everyone received that email that came out from the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District about their capital requests.
Okay.
Fred, for 2022. Do you want to just kind of?
Sure, I can go down the list and real easy, and also maybe backfill a couple of the stories. And Lincoln, I believe they sent over a letter today. Did you receive that? Muted.
Sorry about that. I believe it. Yes, I believe so. It came from Michelle, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, yep.
Yep, I did receive it. Thank you.
Okay, want to make sure that you received that. Basically, our Buildings and Facilities Subcommittee met last night on what to recommend to go through to the full committee. And we trimmed very little, but we did trim some. There was a request for a fan system for the Conley cafeteria. It is sorely needed, but we could put it in right now. And with COVID, we've got to put a piece of red tape on it. We can't use it because you can't push the air around and circulate the air in that manner. It's not exhausting the air out, it's just circulating. So we couldn't use it anyways. We made sure that came off. The first article that we have on there is the Duval, Conley, and Whitman Middle School phone systems. And Lincoln, we're probably bringing you up to speed a little bit, but we've been talking about the phones for a few years. There was another proposal a year ago. It was a little bit less expensive, but it probably would not have done the job, and we probably would have ended up with a change and running into the same type of funds. Our phone system is so old, you cannot buy parts for it conventionally. You have to go to almost like a black market of eBay to find parts for the phones. That's the way it was described to me today, actually. So it's at a critical juncture. Now, the one thing I tried to stress yesterday was spending any money over at the middle school where we have a feasibility study ongoing and, perhaps a project that's going to happen, whether it's a replacement or a refurbish. Why spend money on that when we can be getting reimbursement? It won't last. We need to do this, and we need to do it as quickly as possible. But the good news is the major components can be removed from the old Whitman Middle to, per se, a new Whitman Middle, or stay in place if we did a renovation. So it's not throwing money completely out the door, so to speak. So to do the 3 schools there, $71,208. And that brings them into the 20th century, so to speak, and gets us all the way there. The high school phone system's in the same era. It's 15-something years old. It needs to be replaced. The total cost at the high school is $222,340, of which Whitman be responsible for 60% of. or 133,404. So that's our second article we'd like to put forward. The third article in order of priorities, and Lincoln, I don't know if you caught our meeting last night, but you'll be getting a letter on this. The high school the generators for Duval and Conley that we approved last year at $160,000, knowing that it would not do both generators. That will do one generator and leave a balance of approximately $40,000 to complete the rest of the project. I guess there's a very large concern right now with the cost of copper and the type of PVC piping that they need to use. I forget what the schedule number was. Ernie had mentioned it yesterday, that the prices are starting to go up. And if we do wait much longer, we could be seeing quite a bit higher of a cost, another $7,000 to $10,000 perhaps. So what we'd like to do, is we've done with emergency projects in the past, is submit a letter showing the need, ask for the Board of Selectmen to give their backing to the project, and then it will go to town hall for town meeting, so to speak, as a warrant article, as a reimbursement. The district would, fund it, etc. Dave, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if we've given Lincoln a background on the generators.
Okay. I can do it. You can do it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, just real short.
The
last-
very original idea was to purchase one generator, have it mobile, so that we could plug it in each school and keep alternating it back and forth. The cost of that was estimated at $160. Keeps the food fresh if we have a prolonged outlook, keeps the, or I should say, downtime with the electricity, keeps the heat that we can turn on so that we could warm the building to prevent the pipes from freezing. And then once you get it to a certain temperature, you'd be driving it to the other school and then going back and forth. A, you got to make sure that you don't miss it going back and forth. B, you'd have perhaps an issue with snow if you had 2 feet of snow on the ground, being able to get everything in and out in the proper manners. This committee determined that it was better to do the 2 generators than 1. So that's where Ernie got some additional pricing. And instead of 160, it was determined to be about 200 or 100 apiece for 2 generators. It was approved at town meeting for the 160. He's pretty much got the Conley generator all set up and all set to go. He's got purchase orders out actually for both generators right now. So we're, good to go, just looking for the final blessing on the 40,000. There was back and forth concern to try and get them to be natural gas, and that just won't work in either location. I think, Dave, Ernie sent you an email to that, address that. The size of the pipes at Duval won't allow it. We'd have to resize the street pipes at our own expense in order to carry enough volume for the generator there. And over at Conley, I just think it just wasn't accessible, period, for gas. So the decision to go with the diesel generators, your predecessor had given Ernie the green light in ordering, the generators and getting moving so we don't lose time and or money. So that's sort of the game plan from the district standpoint on the generators. I don't know how everyone feels about that. I mean, Justin, you guys would see that, come to you similar to like when a hot water heater, blows, type of thing, saying, if you give us our blessing, we'll pay for it and we'll be sinking the reimbursement, so to speak. And it's small enough we can do so.
And just to add to that, one other concern that they had was power surges. The generators, when if you kept power generating during a power outage, when power came back, it would avoid extreme power surge, and which could damage electronics. But also, when Ernie came to this committee, and it was actually a committee member who recommended, hey, why don't we do two generators? Ernie did, and before we voted on it, Ernie did say, hey, it's likely I'm going to have to come back for additional funds to finish up this project.
Oh,
And-
we fully expected it and
Right.
fully expected that, as far as that went. So that's considered to be obviously a very large priority, and the project is, ongoing right now. I think most of the electrical and a lot of the infrastructure has been already sort of laid in, so to speak. At least in the Conley, it's pretty much all set to go. The high school existing fire lane. If you are looking at the high school and went all the way to the left around the gym and you drove around the back, we have a fire lane so that if a fire truck needed to get there, they have access to the back of the building, etc. It's also where the generator is for the high school. The road, I guess, is suffering some deterioration, for lack of a better word. The water's pooling up, it's getting ice all over it, and it's getting worse and worse every year. That coupled with the fact when we put the preschool in there a few years ago, that was one of the original designs, was to let the students off in the back. The little kids go to the back and they go right inside the door, to their class. We ended up nixing that for, how do I say it politely, reasons that other committee members felt were more important, and utilized and built a additional loop out front. So now the kids were going in out front, to come into the building. Since COVID, they are now totally separated and they're utilizing that back loop again. So Ernie feels it's a priority that we get that fire lane done. It is, split up with Hanson again. We did appropriate back in May 2019, $14,955. It's not, it's just not enough, period. The total project cost is 82.5. The Whitman total share would be 49.5, less the 14,995 that we've done. So approximately 34.5 is the estimated cost on that.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a quick question? I'm sure other folks on this committee know this, but what was the thinking in 2019? Was there just a thought that the cost would be less, or was it a function of the project changing or more deterioration, or what changed in the last 2 years?
The project itself and the cost factor went up, and I think the project, the width of the road a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
And that's the changes there. Then we have, last but not least, the high school fire panel. Simply put, the fire panel has reached the end of its useful life. I'm told that if it fails, we'll have no choice but to replace it because we can't get parts for it. We can roll the dice. It's a $44,000 cost to the town of Whitman. Total cost is $74,000. If it doesn't fail, then it's cost us nothing this year. We've gotten another year out of it. It's working right now. It's responding properly. And this is just the panel. This isn't the detectors and the other parts of it, just the panel itself. We've had this issue in the elementary schools at times for years, that the panels work, just if they fail, we're not going to be able to replace them, or we're going to have to replace them. And we've rolled the dice and been lucky. Actually got very lucky over at the Duval School. We had a company in cleaning the carpets, and their hose let go and smashed into the fire panel, and they had to pay for a whole new fire panel for us. So that was on their insurance. We got lucky on that, I guess. But it's on there. We can roll the dice because I don't know how much more it would cost realistically, if we rolled the dice and it didn't go, and Josh, you may have better knowledge than myself on something like that, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you know a lot more about this stuff than I do.
Yeah, I've had a couple of conversations with Steve over the last week or so in regards to the phone systems as well as the fire panels, and they're definitely old. I actually requested the quotes that they received, so I have that information I can forward along to the group here, so everyone can take a look at the numbers. The project for the phones would have to be bid out anyways because it's over $50,000, so it'd have to be a sealed bid regardless. But just to give us some ballpark numbers and at least show the figures for what's being requested. There's no question at all. I think Hanson, I believe Hanson, the town of Hanson, approved the phone part of it last year. But the district could not move forward with it because they can't do a part of a project. They have to do it all basically, because the heart of the system for the phones is actually located at the high school. So we'd have to basically replace that first before you go in and do the rest of the remaining building. So long story short is it's certainly well approached as far as the need. The fire panels are certainly old. I did discover today that the telephone systems were actually under a maintenance agreement previously, and that maintenance agreement was actually terminated in 2014. And the district attempted to try and get back on the maintenance agreement to cover the phones, and they were denied because obviously the equipment is so old, they wouldn't cover it back under the agreement. I think if it was still under the agreement, they may, obviously still have a contract in place. But long story short is, certainly the need is there for new systems.
Thank you. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that.
No problem.
And that is the extent of the capital requests for the school district. Yeah.
Right, and that totals $323,512. Since we're on the subject, does anyone on this committee? Well, this is the first that we're hearing of it, so I guess we'll put it aside for now. But the question is, does anybody on this committee feel that we need to bring Fred as the liaison, or maybe an expert in regards to each of one of these items into this committee to discuss those capital article requests? That's the question that we can answer at our next meeting.
And
I think Justin.
go ahead, Justin, then I'll.
Not necessarily bring anybody in, but I'd like some backup information on the changes to the phone system. I know it was discussed at a school committee meeting, but just what made the price jump between last year and this year?
No, absolutely. And I'll forward off the quotes so you can have the information, firsthand to
Sure.
see some of the details, which was, that's my first question to Steve this afternoon was, I did get the articles from Dave, but, not having the backup certainly doesn't do me any good. So we need to obviously be able to see what's going on behind the scenes,
And Justin, I did ask the same question, and the answer I got was last year was a company by the name of Carousel was giving their best guesstimate, so to speak. And this is a different company giving a different estimate as to what it will cost. But yeah, it does have to go out, on the final stages and be bid out. So, the numbers that we have hopefully would go down. Be nice. As far as that goes, Ernie Sandlin is not going to be available for us for, not sure exactly how long, but it could be, up to maybe 7-8 weeks. Not sure how long he's going to be unavailable, but I just, but I'm sure we have other folks within the district, that could speak if you wanted.
Excuse me, is there any design or engineering fees associated with either one of these projects? Or are these just a one-for-one replacement?
The phones
Phones and the fire alarm?
and the fire alarm? I don't know of any other fees, etc. It's pretty much just a replacement. They know, they come in, the companies come in and assess what needs to be replaced. And I mean, basically you have, and Josh, you probably know it better than I, a box which is the brains of the system. You know, we have all the wirings in place, so to speak, and, you know, how it communicates back and forth. You know, but it's just, you know, you have to replace a brain, you have to replace some sort of a box within each school, you know, and then the physical phones themselves. So I don't think we're doing all the wiring and all that doesn't get done.
No, no, I think I mean, the panel is what is actually being replaced on the fire side, instead of actually replacing all the components like the detectors and such. They have a 10-year lifespan, and I want to say I believe they were replaced potentially once already, but they, you know, no, have they
They have
basically the
been,
original?
they've never been replaced.
Okay, so they are the original one. So, I mean, it's definitely recommended to replace, you know, detectives every 10 years, I think is a standard base. But at the end of the day, the cost to replace every device along with the panel was obviously a very significant cost. So in order to actually get to the point of sustaining a system that is actually going to work and it will be supported, they basically cut out everything except for the actual panel to be basically you're replacing the existing panel that's currently there. So from the fire perspective, I think that's probably the, I don't want to say the easiest project, but out of the two of them, the phone system is certainly more, you know, much more complex from a design and implementation standpoint.
So, Josh, this question to you. So as a technology person and a member on this committee, are you going to look at that capital article and all the supporting documentation in that lens, and then provide us with your expertise, or you know what I'm saying?
Yes, no, I have no problem doing that. You know, I'll certainly pass the information along to you so you can see it if you'd like. But certainly I'll give you my honest opinion after finish reviewing everything that was provided to me today.
Okay. All right. So yes, I mean, that's way above my head. You know, I would rely on whatever on your review and recommendations.
Fred and or Josh, we're talking about VoIP, voice over internet protocol phones here, or?
So yeah, I mean, again, the system is, you know, that was installed back in the high school in 2005 is actually a digital and analog system. There is no voice over IP on the existing side. So essentially what the initial proposal was, I mean, I think they had 2 or 3 different proposals, but their cheapest solution, I think at this point, was to sort of replace the system and sort of form a hybrid, if you will, so that they basically can, you know, they don't have to worry about sort of replacing every single phone within the rooms. They can, you know, get by basically by, you know, replacing the heart of the system, if you will, and then provide them with the ability to expand as necessary, and allowing the ability to use, you know, VoIP phones to give you the IP. Which again is, you know, I think most of the standard today is, you know, moving to IP. That way you don't have to worry about being physically connected to a port somewhere in, you know, in a room somewhere, you know.
Thank you.
And that was similar to one of the things that it took me probably a year to get my head around. Because I do everything, my phone's here, my office, I'm all VoIP. I talk to you on my phone, it's going through North Carolina. That's where the server is. You know, you have a computer, you can download a program. I use Bria. I mean, heck, my cell phone uses Bria and it becomes an extension on my VoIP. You know, my telephone downstairs, you know, it's got a little USB dongle on it, picks up the Wi-Fi, boom, you know, it's perfect. You know,
Yeah,
but I'm told we can't do that our infrastructure won't support that in the schools, right, as it's currently configured. If we spend $2 million and do all of our hotspots and servers and get everything all up to snuff, then that would support that. But we're nowhere near being able to spend that money and complete that project at this time. That is on our radar, and we will be coming forward more and more with those types of projects. This is one little piece, and it was identified as the most urgent piece, so to speak. Did I say that right, Josh?
yes, no, you and I didn't get a chance to connect. And I know we were trying to connect earlier in the week, but That's exactly it. Unfortunately, the infrastructure, the network switching and stuff like that within the schools is just, it's older. And, from the, Custom Computers, I believe, was a company that evaluated everything. And it's not going to support that fully VoIP environment that, Lincoln had referred to and talked about. It's just not, possible without, doing some significant, work that would obviously be a lot more money. So this is sort of, again, they proposed a couple of different solutions, and this is one of the solutions that's sort of the most economical at this point, to be able to get the system moving forward to a full replacement,
Okay. Any more questions on that? All right. So while we're on the subject, I'm not sure if Lincoln, if you're up to date in regards to the Duval School. And Fred, I'm not gonna. I don't. Let me start, and then if I misrepresent or leave anything out, let me know.
You're
So
talking about the roof?
yeah. So I got a call from Ernie Sandlin, Whitman Hanson Regional School District, stating that with the past snowstorm, they had another water infiltration issue. So going back, just for Lincoln's sake, that water infiltration issue at the Ball School has been an ongoing problem. There was money encumbered at town meeting to make repairs. What was and they thought that the repairs were to a certain portion of the roof and siding. What Ernie had, as he was bidding, looking at the project, he thought that well, based on old deadlines that MSBA had, he thought that the MSBA deadline without a clawback issue was coming up. So he recommended that the encumbered money, the project with the encumbered money, be delayed. He submit a request to MSBA to try to get state funding for the new Duval roof. The clawback, the state had changed the clawback deadline, and I forget the exact number. Changed the exact so the MSBA funds were not available. So the thought was that, okay, well, we have this money encumbered. Let's continue just to do repairs as necessary, because it seems that it happens during specific weather events, wind and rain from a certain direction, and significant snow accumulation. When Frank Lynham was on this committee, we discussed it and said, okay, well, yeah, why don't we use that encumbered money as as an account to draw off and make the necessary repairs, until which time the MSBA opens up and you can apply for that funding through the state. Ernie had mentioned that the last I mentioned that earlier, the last snowstorm, money had occurred. They had incurred costs due to water infiltration. They identified another issue out there, meaning that the roof on the first floor, the drains are pitched too high to allow for proper drainage of water on that building. So there's another issue out there. The school committee anticipates, I don't know if you've received it already, anticipates sending you a letter requesting funds through the currently encumbered account. And that's it. So before we end on that, Fred, do you know what the MSBA clawback deadlines do?
Yeah, and if I could fill, it's actually in determining what it was, 600 and some odd $1,000, I think, was a town meeting to replace or repair the roof. And it was hoped that we could replace and do what we needed to do for that money. As we started doing the engineering, it was determined that when the addition was built, the EFIS system, and I didn't know what that meant, but I know Mr. Curran would know if we need to have the explanation. It was installed incorrectly when the addition was put on. So that's the basis of our problem. it was determined that we would wait until MSBA, the 20-year clawback, which I think we're at like 18 and a half years at the time, maybe 19 years, real close. So when the 20-year clawback expired, we would apply for an accelerated grant program roof repair and get that all, and get the building fixed. Last year, before COVID, or the year before, no, the year before, I'm sorry. Yeah, maybe it was last, geez, I'm losing it. But they changed the clawback from 20 years to 27 years. Pretty substantial. We decided, you know, we would still try and repair it. It's only in a certain direction of a wind-driven rain or a very extensive snowstorm that there are issues. That being said, we did contact Allison Sullivan along with Senator Brady. And we asked if there would be a possible earmark that they could come up with for us to fix the roof. They had into the budget last year, $750,000 to be set aside for us to be able to do that project. Who knows if it would have passed, but it never even got a chance to really be heard. As we know, the state pretty much gutted everything. I've already been in touch with them again. They're talking about how much and what they're going to be able to do for us to put on there and really make a push for this year, so to speak. Once they've got that, my mindset tells me to call Mr. Cutler, who's, I believe, still on Ways and Means. I know he's received a chair of something else, and he was vice chair of Ways and Means, or hopefully he still has friends over there. That maybe, you know, we can get a little bit of a nudge and some help that way too. So, you know, we're perhaps not dead in the water if we can get some state aid with it, but obviously to keep using our monies that we have to keep, you know, making the patches and repairs as an ongoing thing. Unfortunately, it's reactionary instead of being proactive.
And just for the sake of anybody watching this, Ernie Sandlin has indicated in the past that whenever there is a water intrusion issue, that it gets cleaned up. They do the necessary air monitoring, so there's no concern. In the past, there's been no concern of any effect to those who are within the building, teachers, administration, or children.
Yeah, and in all our buildings, for that matter, are tested for air quality on a regular basis. So, you know, we do try and make sure that we have good ventilation and good air quality for our kids and staff.
Go ahead.
And just to put a timeline on that, the Holt School closed in the spring of 2000, and the Duval addition started getting students in the fall of 2000. So that 20-year period hit last year. Yeah.
They waited for us and then they changed it.
Yeah. So any other questions, comments, concerns on Duval School? All right. So that wraps up the that's a very good summary of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District issues, items in that Duval School issue. So I was going back. So the question the last time we were talking about the forced sewer main was the you know the what are the estimated costs. And so what we found out was the estimates in the feasibility study aren't the actual estimates. There's a new one out there. We got a copy of that. And I was kind of looking at the numbers, trying to figure something out, because my concern that I had raised is, you know, why, the way I phrased it was, why are we concerned about having a duplicative pipe for a new pipe that might last 20, 30 years? DPW expert environmental partners, you know, mentioned, geez, you know, it's going to be, the lifeline of that pipe should be more than 20, 30 years. So, you know, so it got me to thinking, you know, it kind of reinforced my question of why do we want to spend these monies to revamp the old line as a redundant line. So I was doing the math, and when you take the bid alternate is what it's called, and it's about $1.6 million. When you add on 10% project management, 10% markup, 2.5% bonds, and 8% owner's rep, estimated owner's rep costs, it just brings it up over just $2 million. And that $2 million represents about 15% of the total project amount. So I just want to get that out there and let everyone know that just let everyone know that because the funding source of this is again borrowing and then raising sewer rates. My sense with the finance committee background is numbers. Why spend money now, raise rates on people when this thing should last greater than 50 years.
Dave, if I could,
Absolutely.
I have thought about it as well, and I think if we were going to put in a brand new sewer system, would use PVC pipe, force main would go to Brockton. We certainly wouldn't put a redundant line next to it. So my confidence would be very low that in 50 years, if the new sewer pipe fails, that we'd be able to connect to it anyway. So I think that, and I talked to Bruce Martin about it, and I think they said it was going to be down around 8.2 million if we don't do anything with that pipe. So, and then the water sewer rates go up $1.70 instead of $3 something. So that's how I feel about it. I don't think the town would ever connect to a redundant pipe.
Can I just ask one question on that, Bob? Are we required to remove the existing pipe that's there?
No, we can abandon it, clean it out and abandon it.
Abandoned in place? Okay.
Yeah, just leave it where it is. And like I said, this pipe, even if we fix it, what's your confidence that in 50 years from now, it's going to be serviceable? So my opinion is you just leave it alone. Clean it out, leave it there.
All right. I know the DPW commissioners had a meeting this week. I think it was this week. I'm not sure. Was it last week?
They have a meeting scheduled next week.
Oh, for next week?
And I know, my understanding is that they're intending to make a recommendation on which of the base plus alternates they're in favor of, but at this point, they have not taken an official position.
Yep. All right. Perfect. Yeah. So I'll watch out for that and bring back that information to our next meeting. Right. And so that would be before your DPW Board of Selectmen joint meeting on the 23rd. So that'll be good. So we may need to revisit. We had voted on that capital article at 16 million. We may need to readdress that at some time in the future. But I guess we'll hold still until we hear more after that DPW commissioners meeting. All right. Does anybody else have any other concerns on that? All right. All right. So that's that. So early on in this budget season, I had requested the department heads who had capital requests provide me with I think I mentioned this already, provide me with dates in which they were available to meet. I haven't responded back to them because again, I think I was waiting for the warrant to close, and we'll have the whole month of March to go through that. But what I'll do is I'll put everything, I'll put all the requests onto one document, get it to this committee members, and if you want, you can reply back, reply all with a question, just no deliberation. And then what we can do is, instead of blindsiding the department heads or having a question ahead of time that they may not be prepared for, we can maybe provide those questions ahead of time and in anticipation, and they can be prepared for their meeting when they do come in. So I would anticipate we may need, well, we have March and April, so I think we're going to have plenty of time to get these department heads in and vet out these projects. Most of the projects, most of the capital requests are equipment and vehicle requests. One is the armory roof. We discussed the sewer main, the DPW building, which I'm assuming won't make this warrant of this year. But other than that, everything else is really just equipment and vehicles. We currently have just over $1 million in free cash. However, kind of what I alluded to earlier is it's possible that all that free cash might not be available. However, some of the capital article requests would qualify for partial funding under water and tank services if that was the appropriate, that was deemed appropriate. So anything that's DPW related would be subject to if it was appropriate to get monies from the water tank services to pay for that warrant article, that's definitely a viable option. But that all seems to be that all needs to be worked out. And I guess that's my question to you, Lincoln. So once with articles that have potential other funding sources other than free cash, water and sewer, obviously DPW, the water and sewer retained earnings, is that an evaluation that you anticipate doing and seeing, what monies do you think should of these, of what percentage of these of the project, what percentage of the funding should be coming from water and sewer retained earnings?
Certainly, yes.
Okay. Do you want to tell? Never mind.
I don't have an answer for it right now, but I certainly intend to.
Right. So I guess pull away the curtain question, and please don't answer this. What that I always have is how do you make that determination? But please don't answer that question.
Well, I'm happy to. I mean, I don't think it's. I think it's just an analysis on from the two superintendents about what portion of the time each piece of equipment would be in use for water and sewer versus everything else, and do the analysis based on that analysis. I mean, it's a projection, but it's a reasonable projection. That's how I would approach it.
And so I think on this committee, other than you, Lincoln, I think I'm the newest person to the town of Whitman. But when it comes to DPW equipment, the story I've heard is that there was a their equipment was horrible, and then they over a year's period of time they purchased a large fleet of large equipment.
Right.
And someone tell me if I'm wrong.
That was John Pettinelli, I think, with Chapter 90 funds.
Yes,
That's correct. That's correct.
So the one concern that I have on that is like, how do is it and they've had a pretty good schedule of having heavy equipment approved in the past couple of years. Obviously they need more to replace the older stuff, but does it make sense? I guess one question that I'll ask the DPW when the time comes is that does it make sense? Can it be staggered out a little further so that way we're not in the same boat in 10, 15 years when everything craps out and at the same time?
Yeah, that would certainly be what I would advocate for. I would say I'm not sure. I'm afraid the time is a shorter time frame than 10 to 15 years based on the age of the existing equipment that was purchased back then. with chapter 90, based on the age and the usage of it, but that would certainly be what I would advocate for, yes.
All right. So that's all I have for today. You know, again, I would have had the meeting minutes, but I don't. So I'll definitely have them for next meeting. And it's possible that so we're into the month of March. So it may be likely that I'll be able to schedule one or if not more department heads in to discuss their capital requests at our next meeting. So I'll as soon as the warrant closes and Lincoln has the ability to provide me with a summary list. Sorry, Lincoln, can I request a summary list? Thank you. I'll go ahead and get that out to everyone, and I'll attach all the documents behind it, and kind of clean it up so each request is kind of clean it up for everybody. Take a look at it, and if anybody has questions ahead of time, just shoot them along. Do a reply all, but please don't deliberate. And then when the time comes, I'll be sure to read that question in as part of the public record.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
one question. I don't know how anyone on the committee feels, and if no one feels apt to proceed, please, by all means, say it. I'm just thinking with the generators where the district is going to be writing a letter to the Board of Selectmen. I don't know if the committee or if you would entertain a motion to recommend that project go forward, at this time, so that a recommendation could be given to the Board of Selectmen if they're meeting before we are, and they get the letter quicker. I'm just thinking that, and I should have mentioned it earlier, and I'm sorry.
I don't know if this committee has the authority to greenlight a project, right?
Not green light, just that we would be recommending the project. That's all.
Oh,
In other words, we're not saying go ahead. That's up to the Board of Selectmen, but it's just providing them perhaps with the guidance that this committee has vetted that project and is recommending for the additional 40,000.
okay.
The
Yeah, go ahead.
question on Fred. Fred, is your motion to recommend this as an article at town meeting? Just
Correct.
to preempt
And-
that? Okay.
To recommend it as an article at town meeting and to have the support, that this committee supports the article is basically what I'm saying. It's up to the Board of Selectmen, obviously, to support the article themselves, but just so they have the guidance that it's been vetted by this committee.
Interesting. So the question is, so usually, we'll be voted on an article that includes the project as well as the funding source. I guess the funding source, the only available funding source for that particular project would be free cash.
Correct.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Fred, do we have any additional details for that? As far as I know, it was, an extra $40,000, but I know, is there any specifics that went along with as far as what the, is it a breakout 20,000 each school, or what's the?
I wish I had the exact breakout. I don't. I know Ernie was penny pinching as much as, making sure that they did the digging for the forms to make the forms so they're ready to pour the pads when weather warms up. So it's being done, quote unquote, in-house to save money, etc. But I don't know the breakdown. If one was, 92,000 from one school and 108 from the other, I don't have that breakdown.
Do you anticipate that there is any supporting documentation associated with that?
I would think that at the end of the day, Ernie would have what he spent on each school. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I have no, unless anyone else has issues with it, I have no issue.
What is, I'd like to hear, sorry, I don't want to put Lincoln on the spot, but I'd like to get, I don't know if Lincoln has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the funding source question is an important one, and I don't have an answer for that right now. I mean, it seems like there's a need, but I'm not sure there's a funding source as part of the recommendation. It sounds like traditionally, is that correct from this committee?
Yeah, typically we would vote on a complete article. So, well, you know,
But I mean, but obviously the committee could. I mean, I guess, I don't have a strong feeling either way. But obviously, it's within the charge of the committee to make that recommendation if there's a majority that wants to.
well, let me put it a different way. So in the past, when this issue came up and we knew that there was going to be additional funds necessary to finish the project, it was I think it was unanimous of this committee that we all understood that and we were prepared to make that recommendation in the future, being now. So I mean, unless anyone feels otherwise, or thinks otherwise, I think our commitment to the project, stands in the affirmative based on our discussion from last year. Go ahead, Justin.
Just so yeah, definitely, we knew this was going to run over. We're going to need to fund the rest of the project. But to me, for the district to move ahead and spend the money to save construction costs is not an emergency. It's a little similar to the paving the parking lot at Duval a couple of years ago, where it's perfect timing. Where it's really not an emergency. It's just they want to get the project
I
done.
think the dog disagrees with you.
Yes,
Sneeze?
that's a good point. Define an emergency.
I mean, it sounds to me, I don't know, maybe Fred, you can correct us if we're wrong. I don't know if, did they already spend that money and then they're.
Yeah.
No. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I would 100% agree with that concern, is that, you wouldn't, I guess I sort of misunderstood there too, maybe. If this project has started in the way that, in such a manner that the additional $440,000 is required, then yeah, I think that's problematic. I think that needs to wait till town meeting, because what happens if town meeting doesn't approve it? Right? So, but if that,
if the district went forward and spent it,
yeah,
then the district ends up owning that 40,000. That's on them if town meeting.
right. But I mean, but I guess I understood it to be that there was planning for that, but it hasn't happened yet. Is that incorrect, or?
Well, you've got two things happening. You've got planning, but you've got a lot of the infrastructure. I mean, Ernie spent up to that $160,000 level.
Right.
He hasn't exceeded that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal. I don't think that there's, I mean, I don't think we can't stop the school district from doing that, right? But it's, yeah.
The way I look at it is ultimately, and this is my district hat on, we're asking the Board of Selectmen to say, yes, we agree, we knew the project was going over. Yes, we support the project on town meeting floor. And we have their support behind them. They've given us the green light, so to speak, to, if you want to spend your money, we are supporting the project.
Yeah, but I do think that I wouldn't want a board of selectmen vote or a vote of this committee to imply to go ahead with spending towards monies that haven't been approved yet by town meeting. So, so obviously that's, the monies are there and the school committee, wants to proceed, and, I don't, that's up to the school committee and the school administration, but I wouldn't want to vote, the only entity that can commit these funds is town meeting. So I just wouldn't want that vote to be misperceived to mean something that it doesn't. Is that fair?
No, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean,
I think
But-
that makes sense, exactly, because I think, if we're coming up here and voting on something, I don't want there to be a false positive in the sense that they feel that, okay, yeah, it's great, we can spend it, and then find out that, fortunately, town meeting didn't approve it, and then the district's out $40,000. So.
Yeah, and from what I'm hearing, you'd prefer that to not even be asked of the selectmen in this manner.
Well, I mean, I guess from my
Yeah, I guess that's
perspective,
a little off topic for this.
but yeah, I
committee,
guess from
but-
my perspective, there's no harm in asking the selectmen. I just don't want a vote to be misperceived for what it means,
Correct.
right? You know, so there's, I mean, of course, you know, this committee could take that vote and the Board of Selectmen could take that vote, but it doesn't have a legal meaning until it's approved by town meeting. That's all.
Totally understand.
And
Totally
just all
understand.
that being said, it was this committee that asked the schools to spend more money to build
Okay, yeah,
permanent
okay.
generators at each one. So
Which was the right thing to do.
No,
It
absolutely.
was. You know,
Can I ask one follow-up question that probably everyone else on this call knows? So the determination was made for both schools and both generators that gas was not appropriate? Or just,
Correct.
okay, both schools, yeah.
Yeah,
got it.
and the determination was made, I mean, it was investigated and determined not to be feasible.
So both, I believe both schools don't have gas lines right there, is that correct?
Correct, and
they're not sufficient to
Or not
handle a
sufficient
generator being
gas
added
lines.
to
so
it.
you know better than I
Thank
do.
Yeah, Justin, you know, tell us.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, Dave, if I'm not mistaken, information was actually forwarded from Ernie in that email that you sent.
So to wrap this up, and if anyone has more comments after this, go ahead. But to wrap this up, I think what we're saying is that we in the past, in our past recommendation in the affirmative to fund our past support to fund additional monies to be encumbered to finish these projects still stands. However, we feel that the article should be presented in order for us to make a recommendation to town meeting. Am I summarizing that right?
I mean, we would just support it as we normally would. You know, in other words, I mean, quite frankly, I'm gonna try and make sure that the district hasn't sent out a letter as we had talked about. No sense in putting the Board of Selectmen, you know, on the spot, so to speak. I know Ernie wanted to finish it. If it ends up costing a little more, then that's what it does. Okay, and we'll go from there. You know, he's at the threshold just shy of that $40,000. It'll just have to wait, that's all. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, because I think what we're talking about is probably the construction season, right? So he's probably thinking as soon as the weather is good enough, he wants to pour.
He just wants to get it done, period.
And-
You know, and he's worried about seeing the pricing going, I guess, copper wire, whatever the schedule letters or numbers of that pipe is just going like through the roof. You know?
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, I mean, if the, you know, as long as the school district is comfortable with taking that risk of the possibility of town meeting not approving it, then, you know, then that's fine. You know what I mean? From my perspective, right?
Okay,
But-
so,
But
Yeah.
do you understand what I'm saying? You know,
which we
so,
would always be doing,
right,
so to speak, whenever a project like this
right.
happens, with the caveat, when it's an emergency, you know, we come right out and say, it was an emergency. We needed hot water in the school. You know, and therefore we had to do it right away. And people understand, you know, we wouldn't be saying this was an emergency. You know, we stepped up this portion of our project so that it would not cost us more. You know, and we're asking for reimbursement, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, perhaps we leave the letter alone and the selectmen just saying, yes, we endorsed the project as we did last year. You know, we did know that they were spending the money. It's at their own risk. But we do endorse that project going forward and those monies being spent. I think that would, you know, that's all we'd be looking for anyways, putting on my school committee hat.
And you know, that's one thing that this committee did not foresee, you know, like we didn't anticipate that, okay, monies are going to be needed to be available to finish the project prior to the ability of funding being available. So we didn't foresee this issue.
I didn't foresee it either until last night when it was told to me.
Yeah.
Oh, so Fred, you had no idea that there was an additional 40,000
Oh,
required?
I knew the $40,000, but I didn't know that we needed to be doing it like now.
Oh,
You know, that was the surprise to me.
That's why I was asking, like, is there specifics, like, maybe a transfer switch is $20,000? Is there components or something that was missed, or where's the X? That's what I'm trying to get at, but.
Oh, no, it's the 40,000. It's the monies that we knew it would cost. It's just, he doesn't want to see it start costing more than that because that's what he's requesting. And doesn't want to come back a second time either. Or
Yeah.
a third time.
Yeah, it's the issue is that we didn't realize that, nobody foresaw that we were going to need monies to finish the project before monies were available.
Right, and we knew we were going to need extra money, we just didn't know how much. I guess is the, that best way to say it.
All right.
Off topic.
Go ahead.
I think that the DPW is planning on presenting the new construction building, the new DPW building at town meeting this year. Is there a placeholder, Lincoln, in the warrant?
So I believe, I didn't get a chance to check everything today. I believe an article did come over to that effect.
Yeah, so they're going to have the numbers from the feasibility study, I think by the end of the month. And their plan, as far as I know, is to put it in on annual town meeting.
Yeah, so the feasibility study is not complete now.
The end of the month it will be.
Yep.
Yeah, so I just I did talk to Bruce Martin today about it. And he was under the understanding that they were going to try to get the building funded this annual town meeting.
Yeah, I think that's very much premature, but of course they're entitled to put in that article if they want, and it's up to the Board of Selectmen about whether or not to include it.
This committee knows if it does go out, the feasibility study, then we'll know a cost of the project. And then the next step would be to get town meeting to approve it. And we go out to bid, right?
Yeah, I mean, my perspective on it is that I believe you would very much want to go to town meeting if everyone agrees that this building's necessary. And I've explained this to both superintendents. If everyone agrees and the consensus policy-wise is that this building is necessary, it would be a much better idea to go to town meeting with a clear understanding of what the building's going to look like and exactly how it's going to be funded, and that you're not just going there with a feasibility study, which quite frankly is not complete now, less than 2 months before town meeting.
Right.
So I think I've expressed that to both of them that I think it's very much premature. But I'll leave it at that for this moment.
And just for your information, Lincoln, I think that the whole town knows we're in desperate need for a new building there. So I think a lot of the politics of it has been already put out there, which is a good thing for that project, but.
Well, let me ask.
But I'd certainly like a sense from this committee, though, if I'm the only one who thinks that's a little premature. If I'm the only one, then okay.
It's tight, but I think the town is ready for a vote.
Yeah, Lincoln, hold on before, Lincoln, great minds think alike, because that was my question. But go ahead.
So quickly, I mean, I don't know if maybe I'm wrong, but are we going to actually put this in a priority order or something as far as like, believe me, Bob, I know the building is extremely important, but in front of us, I think is a $16 million sewer project too. So, I mean, from a priority standpoint, I don't know which is more important. And obviously we can only handle so much at a time as far as the cash flow goes, and without an override, of course.
I absolutely agree. My feeling is we ought to get through this town meeting and maybe do a special town meeting in the fall for this project, or does it have to go annual? Do you know, David?
You could certainly do it at a special town meeting. It could certainly happen at a special town meeting.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit close. They won't have the feasibility study till the end of this month.
Yes.
Well,
but like I said, I think the town is ready to vote on this only because they've become aware of the needs of the DPW, and they see it they're seeing it. So the town might be in a better position now to do it than they were 3 or 4 years ago. And this project's been ongoing for more than 10 years now.
Chair.
Go ahead, Fred.
Also, it's gonna have to get put onto an election ballot, because
That's right. It'll be a debt exclusion or an override.
That's absolutely
debt
correct.
exclusion, I would think.
The same thing for the middle school too, correct?
Middle
Oh,
school,
absolutely,
we're talking
yes.
a year or two.
Yep.
Yeah, and DPW has been out there, I think, for a lot longer than the middle school project, so.
No,
Yeah, I
correct.
think the numbers for the DPW building are coming in around 6.
That is correct.
That's good, because, it came in less than that. There was discussions of more than that, so 6 is good.
Yeah.
Justin, you had a question?
Just, yeah, on the DPW building, the Collins assessment had flagged it as our highest priority project a while ago, that along with the sewer force main, so it's in the right ballpark. But they'd also projected us spending covering about a third of the cost of it out of retained earnings. Just something to consider.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to go around the horn here and just ask, and I'll start with myself. The question is, do you feel as a committee member of the BFEC believe that that having the DPW building warrant article, on the spring town meeting warrant is I guess a good idea or a bad idea, especially, and I'll start with myself now by answering that. And I'll say it's not a good idea at this moment because, one, the feasibility study is not done. 2, it hasn't been presented to this committee and vetted out at this committee. So, Fred, is there anything you want to add to that?
I mean, at this time, I don't think that we have enough information to vet the project properly. I think it's a need. And I'd like to see it somehow be able to make it. I just don't know that that's possible given the current time frame and structure.
Yeah. Don, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think we've been talking about this for quite a while. I think the DPW building is decrepit. It needs to be replaced. The bottom line is what does the number come in at? I think that's what we have to wrestle around. So until the feasibility study is complete and in our hands, I don't think we can make any movement on it.
Right.
I think we really should be focusing on the forced main sewer. I think that's a paramount issue. I think that could create a lot of financial heartache for us. And I think that should be paramount on everything that we focus on right now. Personally, that's my priority.
Aaron, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, we have been talking about the feasibility study and the DPW since the other committee was inception back in 2007. We've been talking about this thing for 13 years. And when Weston and Sampson had designed the initial replacement, which we have all those documents back in the old, in the selectmen's meeting room, the cost was like $8 or $9 or $10 million. And the problem we got with people from the town was, why are we spending that much money to park trucks? They don't understand what those facilities are actually used for the guys to maintain and keep up with all the vehicles and repairs and everything. The feasibility study is just going to be that. If we get it at the end of April, there's no way they'll be able to have a building designed within 3 weeks before a town meeting. I think we should definitely wait a little while because, as Don said, the sewer main is a big deal, and that's probably going to take out more attention than anything.
Bob, you had some more?
Yeah, just for your information, once we get this approved, we get the feasibility study and the town votes to go forward, there doesn't have to be another design at that time. There'll be a design presented at town meeting that will show the elevation drawings and the floor plan inside, but then it goes out to bid. Much like what happened at the police station. We had one company do a feasibility study. A lot of us on this committee wanted that company to do the ultimate design, but all we need to bring to town meeting, if we do it this May, is the feasibility study itself. And that doesn't mean that that's the building we're going to get, but that's the type of facility we're going to put out to bid.
Josh, you want to add anything?
No, I think I've covered it. I mean, like I said, I mentioned before, I think the sewer force main is certainly a, high impact project as far as the funding's concerned. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I know I've been through the DPW buildings, a dozen times. I know, the conditions, and I know they need to be replaced, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But unfortunately, priorities at this point. And my personal opinion is, I think, in agreement with many of you, is that, we don't have the information we need to make a more informed decision at this point. So,
All right, Justin, do you want to add anything else?
Just that funding source really matters on this project as well. So one of the reasons it ranked so high in our capital improvement plan provided by the Collins Center is because it used retained earnings, because it had outside funding that weighted very heavily into their ranking system. So if that's not the case anymore, that could change.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to sort of reframe it a little bit, and I'm glad to know I'm not the only one who thinks maybe it's a little premature. It sounds like certainly a majority of this committee feels the same way. Obviously, that building is a problem and needs to be replaced, but the way it reframed it to a few folks from DPW is, I'd rather go to town meeting and have success with the project and have a new DPW building that's needed in 2 years, rather than perhaps go without everything, all the ducks in a row at this relatively late date and not have success, and then not have another not have a new DPW building that's desperately needed until 6 years from now. So that's how I framed it to folks. That's how I'd frame it to this committee. It's great to know, some perspective from other members here, and it seems like there is a pretty clear majority that while it's very much needed, it's a little premature. And I also just want to say, I think with this kind of project, I'm a big proponent of having a clear design for what town meeting would be approving. And so, while a feasibility study, if it's complete in time, is great, but it's not a design, and there is no, if the entire project was approved at this town meeting, there is no mechanism to come back for town meeting to see the design. That it's done. There is no article that town meeting would hear if it's the whole project is in order for the town meeting to see a design, if the project was approved in full at this town meeting. So I think a much preferable option would be to, if the feasibility study is done in a somewhat timely way, to go to town meeting and request designed funds and have that design, and then come back to a future town meeting, even if it's in the fall, maybe not a year later, and have a clear picture for the voters about what it is that they're voting on. I think that's my opinion.
I agree.
Josh, did you still have a question?
no, I think we've, sort of batted this around a little bit. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Kevin Cleary and Dennis moved forward when they were asked the question about the retained earnings. They don't seem too keen on using that money for projects like this. They're looking, I guess, on using that money for more emergencies or unexpected situations that may arise in regards to the sewer system.
If you remember last year, we discussed when the feasibility came out, we discussed and improved the monies for the recommended approval for the monies for the feasibility study. It was discussed, how that project would be paid, and it was discussed that they were going to use retained earnings. I don't think an exact dollar figure or exact percentage was provided, but it has been. I think that was the general consensus from DPW that some monies from water and sewer retained services were going to be used.
Okay.
All right. I think any other questions on that one? All right. That's all I have. If anyone wants to comments, questions, concerns on current capital projects or capital project requests for next year, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Fred Small.
Second.
Josh McNeil seconds. I'll go around. Fred,
Yes.
Bob Carn,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
and I vote yes at 6:55, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Very good.